Viggo Valkersson, club captain and legendary striker of Viborg FF. Viggo was a genuine hero in Viborg. The club's all-time leading goalscorer was a living legend, nicknamed the Iceman by the fans due to his cool finishes and calm head in any situation. He was in his final moments of his last game after 18 long years at the club. With a draw or a defeat seeing Viborg relegated, he had been brought down in the 91st minute in the box. Viggo had never missed a penalty for his club, and if he scored just one more, Viborg would secure their place in the top flight, and he would secure his hero status with the club and the fans. He placed a ball on the spot. He took a few steps back and a deep breath, and he began his run-up. Viggo Valkersson and his young son Matthias had been living with his sister and her husband for the past 2 years. His wife Anna was in hospital with a mysterious illness that the doctors didn't truly understand, and he had spent every penny they had, even selling his home to try and find a cure. And now, with his career over almost, he was penniless and out of options. 2 days before his final game for Viborg, he was taking a stroll through the town and decided to go for a drink to drown his sorrows. One advantage of being Viggo Valkersson in Viborg was that in any bar anywhere, there was always someone willing to pay for his drinks. Now, someone else had been keeping a close eye on Viggo's situation. It was local gangster and dodgy bookmaker Axel Rasmussen. Axel was as stone cold evil as they'd come, and one of the ways he made his fortune was by match fixing football games. He'd been following Viggo and pulled up to the bar in his Bugatti with his 2 biggest henchmen. He approached Viggo at the bar with an offer. He already had many of the players on his books for this last game, was set to make a fortune if Viborg got relegated. All he wanted Viggo to do was not score, do anything possible to not score. If he helped Axel, he would not only clear Viggo's debts, but he would give him a nice little retirement bonus. Now this was very, very tempting to Viggo, but he was also a very good person, a competitor. Could he really go against everything he believed in for money? His wife and son meant the world to him, but he wasn't sure. He knew who Axel was, so to avoid any kind of conflict, he initially agreed to his terms. With a swift kick, he blasted the ball straight into the top corner in style. The stadium erupted with delight. The fans ran onto the pitch in celebration. But for Viggo, he instantly knew what he'd done. Instead of celebrating, he knew bad things would now be coming his way. But he just couldn't go through with Axel's plans. So straight after the game, he avoided all the celebrations and goodbyes. He grabbed his son Matthias and they made their way straight to the hospital to see his wife and make sure she was okay. Not long after they arrived though, he saw 3 shadows through the door in the corridor, and then the door opened. In stepped Axel Rasmussen with a very evil grin on his face. He may have been smiling, but inside he was fuming. Viggo had cost him a fortune. All Viggo had to do was miss the penalty, and now Axel was here to exact some revenge. He placed his silenced pistol at young Matthias's head, and with his guards watching the door, he made Viggo and his son watch as he turned off Anna's life support. Tears rolled down their faces as they watched the last bit of life she had left drain away from her body, powerless to stop it. Axel wasn't finished there though. He turned his gun to Viggo's knees and with 2 quick pulls of the trigger, blew both his kneecaps off. Months later, and after those events, Viggo was now confined to a wheelchair, and with the pain of losing his wife, he sunk into his own mind. He never left his room at his sister's house. He didn't speak to anybody. He just sat in his chair day after day in complete silence, staring into space. The family had gone to the police, but the chief of police was also on Axel's books and had said there was no evidence that Axel had committed any crime, and he couldn't have done it anyway because he was with me at a charity event. This once happy child may have his auntie and uncle, but he felt truly lost and alone in the world, a cruel world. But these events were going to spark something inside him, a motivation he had never had or felt before. Growing up, Matthias had never really shown signs of being a footballer. He was okay, but he hadn't played since his mother was taken ill, and it always felt like he was under the shadow of his legendary father. But he wanted revenge, and with him being very average academically, the only way he felt he could earn any money was to become a football player. If he could make it, maybe he could somehow one day get his vengeance on Axel Rasmussen. Now, when he did play, his coaches had always told his father they couldn't really work out what his best position was. He was like a utility player, a good lad to have on the bench to throw in any position, but nothing special. He may lack skill and technique, but he was going to make up for that with hard work and determination. Every morning before school, he would get up early and watch as much football as possible, watching how teams shaped up, how players moved around the pitch, taking it all in. And after school, he would spend hours and hours in the garden practicing his skills over and over and over. And every night he would go into his father's room and tell him how he was doing, how he was getting on. Vigo, though, was unresponsive, but young Matthias hoped deep down he could hear him and that he was proud of him. As the years rolled on and Matthias became a teenager, he would still study football, watching as many games as possible in his spare time and practicing as much as humanly possible whenever he could. Vigo had gotten older too and was still in a vegetative state, never leaving his room. But one day, whilst honing his skills in the garden, Matthias looked up to see his father had turned himself around and was watching him through the window. Maybe, just maybe, his father was slowly starting to come back to them, and watching him train and trying to follow in his footsteps was helping. Now, all these years of hard work had paid off for Matthias. He had moulded himself into a fairly decent midfielder who could also cover in multiple positions. He'd been signed up by the VIBORG Academy, something he was proud of, even though deep down he knew it was more about who his father was rather than his football ability. His hard work had shone through though in training pretty quickly, and it didn't take long for the first team manager to recognise Matthias was a player ready for the first team, a true utility player who could be a real asset to his team. And with Viborg now in the second tier of Danish football, the team needed to save money and use some of their academy players. And as Matthias was about to make his first team debut, he was greeted outside the stadium, not only by his aunt and uncle, but by his father Vigo. Vigo still didn't speak, but for the first time in years he was smiling with pride. Matthias was more motivated than ever to play well in his first game, and over the next 3 years he began to play more and more games, becoming a key component in the team that eventually won promotion back to the top flight. But he won't finish yet. He wanted to not only make his father and family proud, but to hopefully one day be in a financial position to exact his revenge on Axel. He was never going to be one of the world's greats, but he had a real determination to make it to the top. With a heart like a warrior, like his Viking ancestors, could he achieve it? Would he repay Axel Rasmussen for what he'd done to his family? Hello, I'm Bood and welcome to the Northman, another story video on my channel. As always, thanks for joining me. It's massively appreciated. Your view is the most important thing. But if you feel generous today, you can always hit that thumbs up. Get involved in the comments. I would love to know what you think. And if you're brand new, feel free to subscribe. If you are new and you enjoy this, I've done many of these over the years. There's a playlist down below in the description, along with many other things. I've done a few recently. The Last Chance, Adversity, and Redemption. They're all kind of linked together. This is on its own, all on its own. But I do have a new one coming out hopefully next week called The Infamous 3. So look out for that. And if you like a Let's Play, I've got Manchester Central. If you're not watching that, it's mint. I love it. Absolutely love it. Episode 20 is by far my favourite ever episode. But we're here, we're going to follow the story of this Danish football player, Mathias Valkesson. What kind of career is he going to have? Will he ever get his revenge on Axel Rasmussen? Well, we'll find that out later. So, should we get into it? So here we are with young Mathias Valkesson. He's 20 years old. He's not played for his country yet, but he does wear the number 10, his father's number. He's a star player. He's been here 3 years. I've done this a little different than normal. We're not jumping in right at the beginning of his career. He's already been playing for 3 years while the club were in the second tier. They've just been promoted back to the top tier in Denmark. And I've also done it a little different, as in, normally when I do these kind of videos, depending on where they jump in at or whatever age, they've always got a high potential ability up in the 190s, like a wonder kid. His is 170, which is still very good, and it's good enough to be a Premier League player. And also, because I've talked to a few people, and a lot of people say nowadays technique is nothing when you've got mentals and physicals. So he's obviously got great physicals and great mentals. As we know, he was very focused, but his technicals are not very good. So is that going to affect him? And also, like the story said, he's a bit of a utility player. He's kind of become a midfielder, but he can cover absolutely everywhere. And he's even half decent in goals. So it'd be interesting to see how his positions develop. Will he probably just spend his whole career in midfield? And what kind of career will he have? Will he be like his dad and stay at Viborg? for all of it? Or will he go around Europe? I was well interested to see. Let's take a look at his information, and of course his favourite personnel is his dad and his manager, who he's known now for a couple of years. Once with a trophy and is excited by the team's chances in the league. Would like to one day be captain at the club, as a preference to play for the club and also become a manager. Now he's got 2 years left to run on his deal, so at some point we're going to jump forward 2 years and see if he stays there. Does he sign a new deal? I think it'd be cool if he put a good ton of time into him. I highly doubt that. He'll probably move on at some point. I mean, he's got a minimum fee of 25 million, so we'll see what happens with that. Now I'm going to be completely honest, I've never heard of this club, not enough to remember it, to log it in the old brain, but it does fit in with my story sort of, so I quite liked it. And once I started doing the research and you look at Viborg, what a beautiful place that is. But they've got a great stadium managed by Jacob Friis, and as you can see on the legends list, Soren Fredriksson is an absolute legend for the club in real life. But there we go, there's his dad, Vigo or Vigo. I've probably said his name wrong. I'm waiting for the pronunciation police to get at me in the comments. But yeah, it's a great little club. So I kind of picked it for this reason. I was saying that in my head the timeline was here. This is the year they nearly got relegated. They finished 9th, but that penalty and that victory kept them in the league, and then everything happened. The year after they got relegated anyway, and they've been down for a while. They've come up and down, and then as you see, they were down for 3 years with young Matthias as a player, and now they're back at the top. If you go on the record, you'll see his father there. Now it's not the same person, if you're wondering. It's 2 different people. John Griffiths plays the father and Matt Vale plays the son, so thank you boys for letting me use your face. But as you can see, look at his records. Guy's a beast. So we're going to jump forward 2 years. Can he follow in his father's footsteps, come out of his shadow and help this club become a force in Denmark, and will he have a great career? Let's find out. Well, here we are. It's now 2023, and as you can see, he's at Borussia Dortmund. So he obviously has left. He's played for his country now 3 times, and he's 22 years old. And it looks like he's played at left back a little bit, because I'm sure that was orange. It's starting to go a little bit yellowy green, which is pretty cool. And there we go. He moved last year, so he played that first season in the Super League, and they got relegated. Wow, so he only started the first half of that season, playing very well. His average ratings are quality, and they made a £4.4 million move to Dortmund. And he's on a good wage there, isn't he? Contracted till 2027, 47.5 grand a week, and then that was his motivation. He wants to make enough money to give him a bit of power to hopefully get his revenge somehow, some way. I don't know how. So he made his international debut against France last year. That's pretty cool. Still wants to be a player for Viborg, and when I do these things, it never really works out that way, but I would love him to end his career back there. I think that'd be pretty special. So we're not going to look at what he's won. I might save all that till the end. We're going to jump forward now a good few years and find out what he got up to. And here we are. It's 2031, and he's at Juventus. Germany, Italy. That's cool. I mean, I know now, I've done this a bit with other things, that technicals are great, aren't they? But I think if you put a fully maxed out technical player with weaker mentals and weaker physicals up against a player like Matthias with weaker technicals, which have improved, don't get me wrong, but great mentals and great physicals, he'll have a better career, be a better player. I think it's probably helped that he can play in different positions. Look, I think he's become a better left back, a better right wing back, so he's getting used. He's that kind of player when he play midfield, but when we need him, stick him absolutely anywhere. But it looks like he's been here a while as well. 203 games, 14 goals, world-class midfielder. Now I think I've done something like that years ago, and I might have to think of a story where we put 2 people together and compare their technical, someone who can pass and finish and do everything, against someone who can't, but has just got it up here and down there, if you know what I mean. So here we are. He stayed at Dortmund for 2 full seasons, and then again halfway through his 3rd season at Borussia Dortmund, he made an £83 million move to Juventus. Finished off the season with them. What I'm buzzing with, and what it shows you that, doesn't it? Look at his average ratings every year. It's amazing. Now, because he can cover up front, he's a decent forward in a way. I thought he might score more goals, and look at that. That's the kind of contract he wanted. That is mega money. He is stacking up the cash. Got 2 years left on his deal. Now, when I jumped in at this point, I was buzzing because I thought he's 30 years old. He's played for his country 63 times, scored 11 goals. I was wondering if he'd done things for Denmark. Now, they never did. He never won anything for Denmark. We'll have a look at that later. But he's retired. Last year when he was 29. I mean, is that going to prolong his career? But that was disappointing in a way. I wanted him to keep playing for Denmark and hopefully do something with him, hopefully. But we can see here his father, he still loves that guy. He's still alive, don't worry. His original manager, he's got Tuchel, Zidane. Wow. Got some friends there, hasn't he? And you may have noticed he loves Juventus. So is he going to stay here at 30? I mean, he's got natural fitness, so, you know, I want him to have a long career. But I don't know. Will he stay here? I've got to the end, and I know he don't finish his career here. We'll find out what he does in between together. Check that out. Real Madrid. 35. Real Madrid. Wow. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So he's had Germany, Italy, and now he's been to Spain. I mean, that is some career, isn't it? He's a full-on leader. Like I say, his technicals seem to get a bit better. They look like they might have dropped off a little bit again, but he's 35 years old. But mentals and physicals will just power you through to make you an amazing, amazing player. So after 10 years, 9.5-ish, at Juventus, wow, where he played a ton. And he's always, look at that, he's always had over a 7 easily average rating. I think, is this year his worst year? He's getting on a bit at Real Madrid. New country though, isn't it? And he's learning them languages. He's learned Spanish. He's clever though. He studies hard, we know that. He can speak Spanish, Italian, German, of course, Danish. I still want him to go back to VIBORG. Please. That'd be absolutely amazing. And I'm gutted that he retired. I bet you he'd still be bossing it for Denmark. And his contract's not as much as it was at Juventus. Quite a drop-off, but I wouldn't mind 230 grand a week. He's definitely a very, very rich man. Got a minimum fee release clause of 105 million. No one's paying that, are they? So here we are at the very end of his career. And he's at Liverpool. I mean, you don't know where they're going to go. You don't know what they're going to do. And he had a maximum potential ability of 170. It started off around 130. I mean, that's a good player. A very good player, but not. It's like 20 odd off from ever being a wonder kid. And like his physicals have dropped off. He's 39 years old. But then mentals just make you a top player out, don't they? I mean, some of you probably know that. I mean, I kind of know that. But it's just weird, isn't it, when somebody's not, you know, he's okay at passing. He had some technique. His first touch was okay. But he wasn't like, it's just them determination, the leadership, the work rate, the bravery. It's made him a top player, and he's had a career and a half. I mean, I was thinking he might go, I don't know, Holland, Portugal. I thought he'd probably dip into England. But Borussia Dortmund, Juventus, Real Madrid, and Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool. In fact, 2 years ago, they spent 6 million on him. And it was Steven Gerrard who got sacked this year. I had a look. Who signed him for 6 million as Liverpool manager. And he still was getting 7s apart from that last year at Real Madrid. And they probably thought, yeah, you're getting on a bit. He played a couple of games at the start of the year. Didn't play too much. Your time's done. You're over the hill. But Liverpool bought him for 6. He's come to the Premier League. And looks like he's contributed. I mean, well impressed. Well happy with that. Bit gutted he never goes back to VIBORG, but he's going to retire at the end of this month, as you can see. Plans to retire on the 20th of June. So I wanted to jump in here and see him while he was still a player. Still a player that's earning a tidy wage. I mean, his contract's running out. He knows he's done. But he's still good, isn't he? He could go back to Denmark and give VIBORG a year. And I reckon in real life he probably would. So I'm not going to mention everything. I'm just going to look for some key things. And try and go through it slowly. But of course, the Dortmund stuff. Did he win anything with Dortmund? I don't think he did. Let's see when he wins some. So there's a double with Juventus. Wins the Serie A again, Serie A, Italian Cup. I'm looking for Champions Leagues or anything like that. So he won a lot of league titles. Oh, there you go. European Champion Cup winners with Juventus. Get in. Serie A champions, Italian Cup winners, Italian Super Cup winners. Did a quadruple. Love to see it. I do. Then he goes to Real Madrid, for 13 million. Named in Real Madrid's seasonal best 11, even though he was getting on a bit. Does he win La Liga? No, he didn't win La Liga, and he didn't win anything with Liverpool. So his best years, obviously, his trophies were all with Juventus. As always, this is the biography. Feel free to pause it and have a look at everything in a little more detail. Now, his achievements, did he ever win a Ballon d'Or? Don't think he did. He's won a lot of things. Gutted and cool, but he's good enough, isn't he? But yeah, I mean, Italy was his best years. Didn't do too much at Real Madrid. Did a bit. Obviously nothing at Liverpool. Probably why Steven Gerrard got the sack. And when he won the Champions League, he beat Liverpool at the Olimpico in Rome to get his biggest medal. Man City have won a tour. Man City have won a lot of things on this simulation. Not my favourite simulation when it comes to that as a United fan, but you know, things are cheap. Things are different sometimes. One thing that's never different is FC Bayern always dominate the Bundesliga. But yeah, I'm buzzing he got a Champions League. Just going to quickly go back to his history stats and just look at the total. Transfers 106 million, 647 games, 67 goals, 77 assists, 27 man of the matches, and an average rating of 7.26. Great. Way better than I thought. I knew he'd be good. I didn't think he'd end up playing in Germany, Italy, Spain and England for like the biggest leagues in the world. So thank you for watching The Northman. Hopefully you enjoyed it and seeing what Matthias Valkersson got up to. Again, I was happy with that and I'm happy with your view. Thank you very much. Thank you to anyone who supports me in any way. Whatever you do, every little thing helps my channel and my content. Again, if you're brand new, feel free to go and watch my other stuff. I'd really appreciate that. Links down below in the description. But the story isn't over. He was a man on a mission, a man with a lot of wealth now, and he had one last thing to do. So, did he do it? Well, before we find out, thank you as always for watching. Stay happy, stay safe, and hopefully you join me for another story and more videos in the future. I'm Bood. Bye-bye. With his career now over, and with millions in the bank, Matthias was ready for phase 2 of his plan. Not long after the events that had led to Matthias' mother's death, Axel Rasmussen had moved his business to Russia. Now, an old wealthy man, Axel had returned from his life of crime and was living a good life back in Denmark in a beautiful cottage in the Danish countryside, spending his days tending to his beloved garden and spending every Saturday playing golf with his wife. Unbeknownst to Axel, the now retired Matthias had been keeping a close eye on him and his movements with a string of private detectives working for him. He had waited patiently for his moment, and that moment was coming. Because one day, whilst trimming his rose bushes, Axel Rasmussen had a stroke. At first it looked very serious, but his doctors had told him and his family that he was very lucky and he'd make a full recovery one day. What he didn't know was that Matthias had paid the entire ward he was staying on enough money to retire if they would all leave the building for 1 hour. As Axel lay in bed on a ventilator, dreaming of returning home to his wife and his rose garden, he looked up to see a shadow at the door. Must be a doctor or a nurse coming to attend to him. But as the door opened, a shadowy figure walked in and he was shocked. It was Matthias Valkersson. He knew instantly who he was. Without saying a word, Matthias walked over to his oxygen machine, a machine that was keeping him alive while he recovered. He looked right into Axel's eyes, knowing he was powerless, and he switched the machine off. As Axel felt his life drain away, he too looked into Matthias' eyes, and they would be the last thing he would ever see.